How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the first broadcast of Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford. We are live here from Tyler Hall in Radford University. As always, my name is Blake Holmes, and I'm here with my co-host Isaiah Addair. Stick around with us, as today we're going to be talking about the recent action around the beginning of football season and the end of Major League Baseball's regular season. But first, I just want to go ahead and shout out, if you ever are a fan of Radio Free Radford, you like what you hear on this station, be sure to follow our social media, Twitter at Radio Free Raddy. The Instagram is Radio Free Radford, and Facebook, again, Radio Free Radford. Be sure to follow our social media accounts. Keep up with the great shows that go on here on this station daily. As I said, to start off, we're going to be talking around football action, something that a commodity around this area. People love this time of year, and you know what's the biggest league in that? The National Football League. National Football League begins this week. Regular season starts. The preseason cuts have been made. Final rosters are set. And we got a great slate of opening week action coming up in front of us. But first, I want to talk about some of the big off-season moves. So, like, big free agent acquisitions, trades, things like that. First, I want to talk about Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald holding out for such a long time and gets a record-setting deal with the Los Angeles Rams. Isaiah, what does Aaron Donald bring to this team, and why do you think that he is worth the amount of money that he received from the Los Angeles Rams?
Aaron Donald is the defense, and being a fan of a team that plays them twice a year, I'm a Cardinal fan, the Rams. It's interesting to see that when he first started there, they were the cellar dwellers of the whole league, not just the division. And he brings a pass rush, he's a run stopper. I mean, I'm convinced they could put him at safety and he'd do some damage, like honestly. But not just having him impacting the play of the defense, but like now they have Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters. Their defense is just well-rounded. It's because people want to play with him. Because he's the anchor. They don't have to make these, superstar plays. They can just play their own style, and it frees them up. And I think it's something that they like to play with. I liked it in high school, playing defensive back, and we had disruptive forces on the inside. And Sean McVay helps, but Aaron Donald is probably the Reggie White of our era, I would say. He'd be between him and J.J. Watt for sure.
I definitely agree that Aaron Donald is an absolute monster. I mean, there's not many players, if any, other than, as you said, maybe J.J. Watt in the NFL that can do the things that Aaron Donald does on an everyday basis. Like you said, just you could put him almost anywhere on the field, and it looks like he'd be athletic enough to be able to play that linebacker, lineman. Heck, put him in a corner, and he's probably good. But, no, I believe that, and plus, as you said, Los Angeles' defense just looks fantastic. Their team right now on paper just looks, I've said to several people, including my friends, I've said that I believe that they may, on paper, could be the best team in the NFC. You've got a quarterback like Jared Goff, who's coming in third year, drastically improved from his first to second year. Well, it's excited to see what he does in his third year. You've got a brand new signed Todd Gurley, huge contract extension for him as well. You still have receivers like Robert Wood. I mean, there are still plenty of talent on that Rams team that could lead them to potentially the Super Bowl this year. They have a great team on paper. It's just a matter of actually putting them on putting the necessary talent on the field, getting a good product out there. So no, I definitely think that with the re-addition, I should say, of Aaron Donald, that just makes them even more of a threat coming in for the upcoming season. On another big deal, record-breaking deal, Odell Beckham Jr. with the New York Giants coming in and just gets this monster deal for a wide receiver. Most money ever made by a wide receiver, more than Julio, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, all of them. So the ultimate question is, again, do you think that he is deserving of this, and where do you think Odell Beckham stands right now as far as receivers go?
So starting with your first question, does he deserve it? Yes. Maybe not to be the highest paid, but when Julio and AB and Hopkins get their next contracts, it'll be bigger than Beckham's. Yeah, he was hurt last year, but statistically through his first 3 full seasons, he's been the most impactful receiver the league has seen. That doesn't take into account guys like AB didn't get to play a lot starting out, but it's still a stat. The offense is different when he's there. He brings down a dynamic and attitude. If he matures, a good attitude. But when it comes to his ranking, I would still say he's behind those big 3 guys, behind AB, Julio, and Hopkins. But talent-wise, he has the potential to surpass all of them, I think. He has to mature and has to improve on his work ethic. But that's where I stand with Odell.
Absolutely, and I agree 100%. I definitely think that Odell, talent-wise, could be one of the better receivers in the NFL. I definitely think he's top 5 right now, if not top 3. But again, it's his work ethic. I mean, you have a huge game, a playoff game coming up, and you're seen 2 days before in Miami on a yacht. That's not a good look for you, your franchise. You need to be able to. That's the time, if anything, that's the time you need to be strapped in and focused on the grind. You look at these guys like Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. The grind never stops. Even in the off season, you see them posting videos on their social media accounts, websites reporting on it all the time, of them just working, and it's a sad sight to see when a guy as with the talent as Odell has. And I know he does put in the work. I'm not saying he is not, like, he never does any work. But if you look like, there's a reason why people say that Antonio Brown is probably the best receiver in the NFL. And it's because of his unstoppable work ethic at the same time. Now, that being said, Odell Beckham absolutely deserves that contract that he got. Odell is the breath of that New York Giants offense right now. Eli Manning's on his last legs as a quarterback. Still think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback when it's all said and done. But Odell Beckham, now he's surrounding himself with weapons. He's got Evan Ingram out there. He's still got Sterling Shepard, an emerging second receiver, maybe a slot receiver that could be huge. And Odell could play in the slot a lot as well. So literally the entire offense goes up and down on Odell Beckham's shoulders. And in that case, he absolutely deserves the money. I get New York, their cap room may not look as great now, but at the same time, you have a special receiver. And as you said, first 4 seasons, there hasn't been a more impactful guy in NFL history, not taking anything away from anybody else. But he's one of the few that we've seen here recently being a number 12 pick that has actually performed above and beyond what his pick was. And so at that time, you got to lock him up for as long as you can. And then the other one, the last one we're going to talk about, is actually a trade happened with the Oakland Raiders and the Chicago Bears, one that nobody saw coming in any way, shape, or form. Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was holding out, potentially threatened to miss regular season games with the Oakland Raiders, trying to get an extension from his rookie deal. And then yesterday morning, we all of a sudden see a trade alert, and he's sent to Chicago. He becomes a new monster of the Midway for a couple of for some draft picks. And not only that, the Raiders gave up Khalil Mack and a second-round pick for that. So the Bears ended up actually getting to move further up in the draft and got Khalil Mack with it. So is there a good side for this trade for Oakland, or do you think that it's just highway robbery by the Bears?
I could go either way. Personally, I love Khalil Mack. Absolutely love him. I think he's a top 3, maybe top 2 defensive player in the league. He can do it all as well, like Aaron Donald. But when it comes to what the Raiders gave up for him, I think John Gruden, analyzing his comments about having to build a team, I think they have Derek Carr, Amari Cooper. They released Martavis Bryant, but they still have Jordy Nelson, Marshawn Lynch, some young running backs in the backfield as well. They have a core. They have a young core, relatively young, even though they're one of the oldest rosters in the league. So I understand getting those 2 picks for Mack instead of having him this year in what might be a wasted season, waiting until next year, getting those 2 first-round picks, being able to perform better in the future than just losing him after a wasted year anyway. I can see that. And I'm really hoping, I like the Raiders. I like what they're trying to do other than that trade. I really hope it's the Calvin Johnson effect, where when he retired, the team's overall performance, the offense's overall performance got better because they weren't relying on Johnson as much. They were able to, reach their own potentials. I hope the Raiders defense does that. I don't think it will, but that's what I hope, and it could turn out really well for them.
Don't get me wrong. I see the decision-making and the process that John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders are trying to do here. They're trying to, while Mack was highly respected in the locker room, at the same time, you can almost say he's a locker room cancer in that it's obvious all he cares about right now with Oakland was his money. He wanted more money as quickly as possible. And with the idea that you're wanting to get that out of there. At the same time, it's highway robbery, though, by the Bears. You could have, I guarantee there's probably some team out there that could have given you a better deal than Chicago did. Gruden wanted Mack out of there. To me, it's pretty blatantly obvious. You don't trade a former Defensive Player of the Year candidate just to get him out of there for that package. You could obviously get more, but at the same time, yes, I absolutely see what Gruden and the Raiders were trying to do, and I think it's a huge win for Chicago because Chicago, in my opinion, does not look bad this year. They're not going to be as bad as they have been the past year. You have two established running backs, Tariq Cohen, Jordan Howard, Mitchell Trubisky still making strides in his second year. I mean, you still have you still have a potential, maybe a wild card team. I don't know. But I don't think they're going to be as bad as they have in the past. And added Khalil Mack only makes that defense stronger. So, to me, and plus, like I said, you move further up in the draft if you're Chicago than you had before. So, in that sense, you absolutely get better in this trade. And I don't see where Oakland gets much better in this sense.
I will say that I was really hoping, because I'm not a fan of Chicago. I don't think they make playoffs because how strong the division is. But I was really hoping that Mack kind of postponed signing an extension, played the year out, and then went to somewhere like Buffalo after the year ended, kind of like, showing Oakland and Chicago that he had the power and that. Plus, he went to college in Buffalo, so I thought it'd be a nice kind of reunion. But he did sign an extension, the one that broke Aaron Donald's record-breaking one. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Aaron Donald held out for such a long time to hold the record deal for one day. Now, the next thing we want to talk about, preseason darlings, in that every single year, there's always a guy who separates himself to being a great guy, great player in the preseason. Whether or not that develops into a great player into the regular season, we've seen Joe Webb do it for how many years now? He's the greatest preseason player of all time. I joke with one of my friends. But at the end of the day, some of the preseason players don't pan out, but some of them do. So who did you see this preseason that you think could be good and could sustain a good performance for a long time, or just looked really good compared to what they have in the past in this preseason?
I'll actually pull out two players, both quarterbacks. One, I say two players because one might be a little biased. But one of them I would say would be Sam Bradford. In a way, I kind of don't think he sustains it, but he played super good during preseason. The Cardinals' line had struggled. The line looked really good too. So Bradford could be in for a career year. We'll see how that pans out, but I think he could be a surprise pick just because the offense as a whole looks good. Then another one that I'm really surprised that I think that could be like a career resurgence was, I talked to you about a little earlier, Robert Griffin III. He didn't play any last year. The year before, he played for Cleveland, took them to their last regular season win. He played extremely well, and surprising to many people, he's actually the number 2 in Baltimore, ahead of Lamar Jackson, right behind Joe Flacco. And Flacco has struggled, so he might actually get some starting experience this year, some more, and just to see what he looked like in prior years after those injuries. He's more confident, showing the same arm strength that we remember, more accuracy. And hasn't lost his athletic ability like a lot of us, including myself, thought he had. So if he gets a chance, I think he will show that. But it comes down to him getting the chance. So for both guys, it could be a rejuvenated career.
I do definitely agree with you with with Darnold. Darnold just, I knew coming out of the draft, I thought he could either be the best quarterback out of this draft class or he could be a mediocre guy. To me, so far, it looks like it could be the former because I think he by far had the best preseason out of a rookie quarterback. I thought Baker looked okay, especially in that first game. He looked pretty good. But Darnold just looks fantastic. His footwork, his composure under pressure, I think he just looks great right now. He has a test this week, I believe, against Detroit. But Darnold looks like he could be the franchise quarterback for the Jets for a long time. Another guy that I was actually pretty impressed with for the most part was already a starter in this league, actually. Christian McCaffrey, so many touches in the preseason, so many rushing. Like, he looks like he could almost single-handedly carry that Panthers offense, and then you take into effect they have Newton, Funchess, Torrey Smith, DJ Moore now, and still Greg Olsen. I mean, this Panthers offense looks great, and Christian McCaffrey is a main centerpiece. It's a main centerpiece in that. you know how many times he touched the ball when he was in the game? 85% this preseason. That it is insane. Not many running backs get that many touches, if any. So McCaffrey touches the ball that many times this season. Look out for some spectacular numbers from Christian McCaffrey coming out. And of course, I got to point out my guy Josh Dobbs looked better this preseason. Makes the cut in Pittsburgh right now, listed as the number 2 quarterback behind Ben Roethlisberger and in front of Mason Rudolph. Just saying, like, I don't know if I expect that's going to be a tight quarterback race. I think in the future with Pittsburgh between Dobbs and Rudolph, I think it's going to be interesting. Ben's probably got at the most 2 to 3 years left, I think, and they'll both be primed and they'll both be hungry at that time. It'll be interesting to see what they can both do at this point, because Pittsburgh kept both quarterbacks with the idea that they could compete with each other for the starting job in the future.
I think it's an interesting picture that the AFC North has for the future, because once Flacco retires and Big Ben retires, or Flacco might lose a starting job instead of retiring, who knows? But you have Landry Jones, or no longer Landry Jones, but Mason Rudolph versus Josh Dobbs, and then you have Lamar Jackson versus RG3, which no one expected. Then Tyrod Taylor versus Baker Mayfield. You have the potential to have 3 of the next great, modern era quarterbacks in the same division. And I love it. I honestly do love it.
It's surprising to me that the only team that has a long-term franchise quarterback at this point is the Cincinnati Bengals with Andy Dalton. It's just weird to me in that, like you said, in the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to have quarterback battles. Well, Cleveland's will be decided by then. Yeah. I do expect Baker to be groomed to be the franchise quarterback in the future. But right now, between now and maybe 4 to 5 years from now, you're going to have 3 tight quarterback battles that potentially happen, and Cincinnati might still be sitting there with Andy Dalton. So, but I definitely think the AFC North is an underrated division, especially considering how rough it was last year. But I think Baltimore is great. Baltimore could be good this year. Pittsburgh could be good this year. Cincinnati, I'm kind of low on, but when you still have A.J. Green, I think A.J. Green's still probably, honestly, in my opinion, top 5 receiver in the NFL. But in Cleveland looks like they could be better than they have ever been with all the talent they've stocked up this year. It's just a matter of can Hugh Jackson actually do something with it this year? And that's going to be the ultimate question. Now, speaking of rookie quarterbacks with Sam Darnold, I wanted to talk about the rookie that we think will have a better career and a better impact early. And that's anything. So it doesn't have to be quarterbacks, it doesn't have to be running backs, receivers. Which rookie do you think will have the better long-term career? And then also, if it's the same rookie, or which rookie do you think will have a bigger impact to their team early?
That's a very good question. I like Darnold. I do like Mayfield. But I may actually go in the direction of Calvin Ridley. I feel like he's fallen off the radar since he was drafted, because he's behind guys like Mohamed Sanu and Julio Jones right now. But you can only double team so many people, and cover 2 only works so much, having a safety over the top. Julio's going to be doubled. Then Mohamed Sanu and Calvin Ridley. Well, if Ridley starts out the gate slow, Sanu's going to have extra attention because he has shown the ability to destroy defenses when Julio's doubled. But now you have Calvin Ridley, who's 6'2", 230-ish or something like that. Somewhere in that He's not 230. He's on the smaller end with weight. But he's got speed, vertical, and he has some very sure hands. Hands that are like Julio, for being real. So Calvin Ridley could end up having a huge impact. We're going to see the same Falcons offense we saw 3 years ago. Maybe, or was it 2 years ago? And maybe even better. Again, not a Falcons fan, but I really like the way that offense could look. And Matt Ryan is going to put up 5,000 yards again just because he's got so many weapons at his disposal.
I do believe that as far as long-term career goes, I won't say Baker, only because I like Baker. Baker Mayfield is a special player, but I will never trust a Cleveland quarterback until I actually see it. And then I do agree that Darnold, if he can keep this pace up, he's going to be a great quarterback, and that Jets franchise is going to have a great quarterback for a long time. Now, as far as immediate success, there's a reason I didn't mention this guy earlier. We talked about this team earlier on the show. Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley still is, to me, a man, like a monster out of the backfield. Thought he was at Penn State. I thought he could be probably the best. He looks like coming out of college. If he could put anything like he did at Penn State, he's a top 5 running back already to me. And so, how long has it been since the New York Giants have had a top 5 running back? Add that with Odell Beckham, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, as still an aging but still Hall of Fame quarterback in Eli Manning. The line still needs work, but they look pretty good right now, honestly. And think about it. If the Giants didn't lose Odell Beckham last year, yeah, they were 0 I believe it's like 0 3 or 0 4 whenever they lost him. But there was still potential for a comeback. And when Odell went down, the team morale went down. There was just no going back from it. But I definitely believe that New York looks pretty good right now. And I think Sterling Shepard, I believe Saquon Barkley could play a huge part in that. Give him the ball. Imagine what Eli Manning and the receiving core can do now when your running back's going to actually gain more than 2 yards a carry. And that's my thing for immediate impact. But I do believe, like I said, that Sam Darnold could be the quarterback of the future, and it could be a fun time for New York in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Saquon reminds me of, I never got to watch Bo Jackson play, but his play style look a lot like highlights of Bo Jackson, which I really respect, and I love it. I will not buy into him until I see, because like you said, it's a porous offensive line. Odell is going to get a lot of touches, which could free Saquon up. We'll see, but
it's also worth noting Saquon was pretty good in the passing game last year as well. So that's something to look out for as well. Moving on to our Week 1 predictions, something we like to do. This is the first year here on Radio Free Radford that we were able to do a full season of predictions. As we started our show a little bit later last year, we missed a few weeks. This year, full season. Here we go. Thursday night, Atlanta Falcons at the Philadelphia Eagles. In Philadelphia, Thursday night, Nick Foles is starting, not Carson Wentz. As much as I want to pick Philadelphia with it being Super Bowl defending champions at home, I'm picking Atlanta. I like their offense. I don't think that Nick Foles has another game in him like they did in the Super Bowl. I definitely think that Atlanta's offense gets it done. I think it's a close game. I think maybe a shootout. Philadelphia's defense is good, but Atlanta's offense is really good. And Atlanta's defense is pretty decent compared to Philadelphia's, who without Carson Wentz is pretty decent as well. So I shouldn't say a shootout. I'd say Atlanta wins with a score of around 24-21.
it could go one of two ways. I think the Eagles could blow them out, but the Eagles could also get blown out. And the biggest decision factor is how Nick Foles, he's recovering from, I think it's a shoulder injury. How he's recovering from that, I know it hurt him in his last preseason game that he actually got to play in. He didn't look too great then, but he was returning from the injury. I do think it makes a full recovery, and I think if he does play like himself, if he does play, pain-free, then the Eagles will win by a decent margin. But there's no sure bet. So I would say, just because the shoulder's a question mark, I would probably say Atlanta, because I don't trust Nate Sudfeld if he has to come in. So I would say your score margin is probably about right. If Sudfeld comes in, probably not that close. But, I think 24-21 is what you said. I think that would be pretty good.
The Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. I know they look better. They do. Cleveland looks fantastic. Cleveland looks leaps and bounds better than they did last year. But what was my motto all year long last year? I will not pick Cleveland until they force me to pick them. I'm sticking with that. Pittsburgh by a touchdown. Again, I refuse to pick the Browns. If they win this game, then I might start picking them again. I will happily take a loss on my record for Cleveland when they finally decide to win a game. But I had that motto all year long. I will not pick Cleveland until they force me to. So in this sense, I'm still going with Pittsburgh.
Well, this one's hard for me. And it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. But my Madden simulation had Cleveland winning. And the more I watch the team in this preseason, its running game is really good. Passing game, it's got some deadly weapons. The quarterback battle is interesting. I think Tyrod is starting. I honestly think Cleveland will win. I hope I'm right. I don't think I'm right, but I hope I am. And I think there's a good chance. They took some good teams to within a field goal last season. And I think it'll surprise everybody. Still think Pittsburgh wins 10-plus games in the season. But I think Cleveland tries to make a statement with this game and shows that that's a different culture now.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Cleveland is bad. I think they could. They're a huge sleeper team in the AFC this year. Like I said, just tradition goes. Until they force me to pick against them, I'm not gonna, or force me to pick for them, I'm not gonna do it because I picked against them all year long last year, and I was perfect on them, obviously, because they went 0-16. But as I said, until they prove to me that they do deserve a pick, I'm not going to do it. Next game, Cincinnati at Indianapolis. I'm picking Indianapolis. I like Andrew Luck's first game back. I think he hits T.Y. for a couple of huge plays downfield, and I really don't see much else to talk about that. I do think that Indianapolis wins.
I think Indianapolis' defense shows improvement, and Andrew Luck balls out. I'm seeing 350 yards, like 3 or 4 touchdowns, honestly, by him. Yeah, Indianapolis, definitely.
Tennessee at Miami. I don't think Miami's that good this year. I like the Titans. Marcus Mariota looked rough at times in the preseason, but I think he gets his footing here in the regular season, plus Derrick Henry in the backfield. Miami's defense is not great, so Derrick Henry has a 100-plus yard game. Corey Davis finally gets active in the receiving game. Marcus Mariota has a couple of touchdowns. Tennessee wins.
I like Tennessee as well. I love Ryan Tannehill, don't get me wrong, but he's been out for a season and a half, or a season and 4 games, and his top target's gone, and his running back from the time are all gone. That's not going to be easy for him to make the transition. I still think he plays well, but he has less playmakers and more pressures on him. So I say Tennessee, Marcus Mariota, Rashard Matthews, and Corey Davis get going. And the defense looks really good, actually. Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan, former Patriots.
Kevin Byard is still back there. Yeah, I definitely believe, I think that a sleeper running back in the AFC this year is definitely Kenyon Drake. I was very impressed with what he did whenever Jay Ajayi was traded. However, I don't think Kenyon Drake and Tannehill just alone is going to be enough to take out this Tennessee. Again, this Tennessee team looks like they could contend for another wild card spot this year. San Francisco at Minnesota. I'm sorry, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think you go undefeated any longer as a starting quarterback. Go Vikings. I do believe that Kirk Cousins looked less than impressive in the preseason, to be completely honest, but he still has plenty of weapons. When you have a receiving core of Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen with Kyle Rudolph thrown in there as well, and the defense with Harrison Smith, Xavier Rhodes, they all look fantastic, I think, in Minnesota right now. I think San Fran's better than they have been in the past, but in Minnesota as well, give me the Vikings.
Yeah, Minnesota's a tough environment to win in. And I think a big factor will be how Marcus Goodwin and Xavier Rhodes, their battle. But I'm going to give it to Rhodes. Goodwin might beat him for like a 25-yard catch or something, but I don't see much more happening than that. And, Garoppolo, like you said, I picked against him like the last 3 games that they had last year, and he proved me wrong each time. But I think that stops now. I think Minnesota does win. They got Dalvin Cook in the run game, Latavius Murray backing him up still. They have a well-rounded team. Thielen, Diggs, Kirk Cousins, and I forget who their backup is, but I'm pretty sure their backup's decent enough to where even if Cousins didn't play, like you have 2 top 10 receivers and a top 5, 6 arguably running back. Based on what we have seen of him. So, I mean, I think it could end up being a really lopsided game.
This is an interesting game for me because you have no idea how hard it was for me to pick this game earlier. Houston at New England. As much as I wanted to pick Houston, oh my Lord, I wanted to pick Houston, I have to go with New England. I think their defense is going to be better this year. It's not going to be as openly bad as it was last year. But Houston with Deshaun Watson coming back, Lamar Miller still in the backfield, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt's coming back, Jadeveon Clowney's still there. Like, there's so many interesting players and so many interesting routes and decisions you can make with this game. And New England's with their depleted receiving core with Amendola gone. You still have Edelman and Chris Hogan and Gronk. Gronk's still a monster. It's so hard for me too, but I have to pick New England in this game because it's in Foxborough. And plus, with Watson coming back from an ACL injury, we'll have to see how he does.
I picked Houston because I think you forgot about something. And I also picked Houston because they took New England height to the edge last year. But, I mean, Houston has, like you said, Lamar Miller, Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins, Watson's back. And defense, they have Tyrann Mathieu as well. They picked him up. And if you look at the defensive alignment, Matthews probably going to play slot corner. You got Jonathan Joseph on the outside, two really good guys. New England's receiving core is more depleted than you believe. Edelman is suspended.
That's right.
So Chris Hogan will probably be in the slot, matched up on Ty Matthew, and then aside from him, you have who's the other receiver that they have aside from Hogan?
Aside from
Hogan and Edelman, aside from that, I can't even remember who their next receiver is.
It's probably a grocery store bagger
Yeah,
because they seem to make the most basic guys into all pro receivers.
Philip Dorsett, which he plays slot too. That's who it is because Malcolm Mitchell they released. But Philip Dorsett and Chris Hogan, they're going to be matched up on Jonathan Joseph, who, if you remember, just 3 or 4 years ago was in the argument for the top corner in the league, and Tyrann Mathieu, one of the top slot corners in the league. So it's going to be a crazy matchup. I don't think Tom Brady throws a bunch of interceptions or anything, but I think his receivers drop a lot of passes and let him down because they're going to be smothered. Gronk will be a big part, but they also might match up, one of the receivers or one of the corners on Gronk because he's going to be their biggest threat. And since Edelman is suspended, and their backfield, their running back committee, that running back room still up in the air as well, as long as their defensive identity after being dismantled in the Super Bowl. So much has went on. I think Houston does take it.
There's a show I like on ESPN. It's called The Dan Le Batard Show. And a running joke on that is that Rob Gronkowski is a polar bear because it's literally unstoppable. He has the agility and the athletic ability that any receiver does these days, and he's as big as he is. It's almost unfair to another NFL defense to have to be forced to stop him. So at that time, and I think as we've seen over the years, other than a little bit of help from maybe like an older Randy Moss and Gronk, obviously, Tom Brady has not had the greatest receiving cores of all time. So in my opinion, Tom Brady can make any receiver look good. So whether it's Hogan, whether it's Gronk, whoever it may be, I definitely believe that Brady has enough to get it done. I don't think, if I recall, didn't New England start 0-2 last year? I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think they get the win early. I think they make a statement with this win. Tom Brady says, hey, I'm not slowing down. My play's not slowing down. We get the win over a big game against Houston. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. I don't have to say much about this. I don't think Tampa Bay's good. Even with Jameis Winston, who's suspended right now, New Orleans rolls. Even with Mark Ingram out, Alvin Kamara plays fine enough. Drew Brees throws for 300 yards, and the defense stops stymies. I think this is a game New Orleans wins by 2 touchdowns.
I think New Orleans actually wins by about 3 or 4 touchdowns. I mean, Winston is out. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he can either be really good or really terrible. But I like recent moves that New Orleans has made. They don't just have Kamara, and of course their receivers are really good, but they don't just have Kamara, but they have Shane Vereen, and they also have Mike Gillislee they signed yesterday from New England. Both of them have played for New England, actually. And Vereen is an Alvin Kamara type player, older, but the pass-catching, elusive back. Gillislee is a ground and pound like Mark Ingram. So since he was just signed like yesterday or the day before, his playbook, the play selection is going to be really narrow of what he can do. But it doesn't take much to just say, I'm going to hand you the ball, go straight, So I don't think they miss a step with Ingram being out, and I think they just roll. Like you said, they just roll on. It's not going to be much of a challenge for them.
Jacksonville at the Giants. This is a game that's been hyped up by most of Jalen Ramsey. A lot of comments here recently in the media. I definitely think that Ramsey holds his end here. I think Jacksonville gets the win. I think New York looks good on paper with their offense, but Jacksonville's defense just so good, so ridiculous that, I mean, you can line Odell up on either side, and you're either going to have A.J. Boye or Jalen Ramsey looking at him with safeties that are Tayshaun Gibson and Barry Church. That's a good problem to have. Not to mention that the defensive line is people like Malik Jackson, Marcel Darius, Calais Campbell, Yannick Ngakoue, and not to mention you also have guys like Miles Jack. I mean, this is such a defense that's so fantastic. And the Jacksonville offense looks rough at times, but hand the ball to Leonard Fournette and let him do what he wants, because that's what's probably going to happen in this game. I think Jacksonville wins by 10 points or more.
I do agree with that. I think that either Ramsey or Beckham will end up getting ejected from the game. just because there's so much immaturity and they're going to be sparring a lot. But like you said, like even if one of them gets ejected, if Jalen gets ejected, he's going to be on AJ Boye. If Odell gets ejected, then they're just going to have a field day intercepting everything Eli throws. Or they just key on the run and make Saquon's debut a nightmare. So I think it's almost no question at all that the Jags will win that game.
And don't get me wrong, I definitely think that this Giants offense, if they can get the run game going, can expose something. But at the same time, like I said, it's just not great. Like the running defense for New York is not going to stop Leonard Fournette. I don't think that, and I know, Jacksonville's rush defense was ranked bottom of the league last year, surprisingly. But so much of what New York does and their identity throughout the years has been through the air. Jacksonville covers the air really, really well. So, in my opinion, Jacksonville will stymie New York's offense. Buffalo at Baltimore. It's been announced that Nathan Peterman will be the starter for the Bills in that game. Give me Baltimore, though. Baltimore plays like I know from experience. Baltimore plays like an entire different team at home. I think Joe Flacco, knowing how short his leash is this year, this could be a career year for him. And I think Baltimore gets it done.
It might be close. Not bought into Flacco. Rejuvenating his career, having a career, like you said, possible. Their run game could be better than the past years. But honestly, I don't know. Nathan Peterman already has a knack for throwing picks, and that Baltimore defense is stingy, and it just gets better and better as time goes by. So, I'm definitely going Baltimore.
Kansas City at the Chargers. I think the Chargers could be either a 7-win team or a 13-win team this year. Give me the Chargers in Week 1.
Yep, I have to go with Chargers too. I love Phillip Rivers and Melvin Gordon, so.
I love Melvin Gordon and Mike Williams coming back. So you have a receiving core of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Looks great in Los Angeles right now. Give me Los Angeles, especially in the home field advantage. Seattle at Denver. This was such a weird game for me to pick because this used to be a battle of titans when it came to defenses. But now they're both kind of not what they used to be. But that being said, give me Denver. Give me the home field, mile-high city with Von Miller still there. You lost Aqib Talib, but you still have Chris Harris Jr. You still have plenty of playmakers. You still have a receiving core of Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. I don't understand how a quarterback hasn't been good with them yet. But, Case Keenum gets his chance with them this upcoming game. And I think Case Keenum's a great game manager. Denver gets the win here in Seattle. And plus, I don't think Seattle's going to be as good as they have been in the past.
Give me Denver, not because Seattle's offense, but because of their defense. And like you said, Keenum might have a great game. And I love Russell Wilson. That's the only explanation I can really give.
And Seattle, with the injuries, the retirements, with the free agency moves, their Legion of Boom is no more. It's just depleted at this point. So give me Denver. Washington at Arizona. This was a game that actually I thought that these two organizations are going in similar directions in that they both have made moves now to be good now, in that especially in the quarterback department. But that being said, give me the home field Arizona there. That's really a toss-up. Washington's got to go all the way across the country to Arizona for this. But give me the Cardinals. I think their defense does just enough to stop Washington and Alex Smith in this game.
It's hard for me. Try not to be biased. I will say Arizona. Home field advantage is great. They have a lot of history against Alex Smith, Patrick Peterson specifically. And it could be good. It's going to be pretty even, I think. I'm thinking a really low score of maybe 14-17. But I say give me my home team, Arizona.
Dallas at Carolina. I don't think Dallas is going to be that great this year. Dak Prescott looked suspect at times last year. And Ezekiel Elliott's still great. The offensive line struggles right now. Travis Frederick's out. Zach Martin's been hurt all preseason. And when your leading receiver is Cole Beasley right now, he's okay. But at the same time, give me Carolina. Like I said, I already talked about how good Carolina's offense is going to be in this earlier in the show. I definitely think that Carolina gets it done here, especially with home field advantage.
Yeah, we haven't really disagreed except the Browns game, which was just for fun, I think. But I think Newton's going to be on a mission. He has so many haters, more than at any point in his career. I've became a fan, but I've seen a lot of people begin to hate on him even more. And I think he shuts him up. And I think he's going to be in for some great things. I like Dak and Zeke and all of them, but I can't buy into Dallas.
Chicago at Green Bay. My interest is going to be simple. I think Chicago could be good this year, but Green Bay has Aaron Rodgers and Chicago doesn't, so go Green Bay.
Like your logic, Aaron Rodgers all the way.
And Lambeau as well.
Yeah, true.
The New York Jets on Monday night at Detroit. This was a toss-up game for me because really the Jets and the Lions look like, as we've said, they could contend for a wild card spot. They do that every single year. They look like, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day. Most teams either go up and down. The Lions stay exactly the same every single year. They're going to compete for the 6th spot and almost nothing else. So, but I don't think they get off to a good start. I think the Jets win this game. Sam Darnold plays well in this game, hits Bilal Powell a few times. Bilal Powell has a pretty good game out of the backfield. Matt Forte. I think the Jets get it done here in Detroit.
I like the way you think because I was actually going to say the same thing, but for different reasons. Detroit hasn't had a 100-yard rusher in like 5 years. They signed LeGarrette Blount, drafted Kerryon Johnson. Like those signings, but two sort of different play styles, and it's going to clash. I don't see it working like New Orleans does, and I think the Jets are going to take advantage of that. Again, they're a talented young team, so I'm saying Jets just because the chemistry or lack thereof in Detroit.
And the last Monday night game here for Week 1, the Rams and the Oakland Raiders. As I said, I know it's in Oakland, but I think the Rams are probably on paper could be the best team in the NFC, and that's not a far drive. That's not a far travel for them. Give me the Rams.
It's close to home field, like you said. It's very close. The Rams might be the most talented team on paper. If the defense doesn't gel, Derek Carr could have a heyday. But I also think that Jared Goff and their offense would have a heyday. So in a potential shootout, I would say the Rams barely edged them. And it may even go to the Raiders if it's a shootout. But if it's not, St. Louis by like 2 scores.
Moving on to NCAA football, basically we just wanted to give a brief overview of some of the action that happened in Week 1, some of the bigger games. Mostly everything went as expected. A big, almost huge upset alert. Appy State almost knocked off Penn State in Happy Valley, went to overtime, and they threw a heartbreaking interception in the first overtime when they needed a touchdown to respond. It would have been insane because that would have been the 11-year anniversary of when they beat Michigan in the Big House. So, Appy State almost making some magic happen again. The other huge game of the day yesterday was Washington and Auburn, a top 10 matchup. Auburn got it done in 21-16 was the final score. I don't think Washington is as good. I don't think they were really deserving that 6th seed or that 6th spot. Browning looks great. Browning looked great in that game yesterday, but Washington didn't do enough to me towards the end to really get that 6th spot. But big rushing touchdown towards the end of the game. I believe it was Cam Martin for the Auburn Tigers in the final minute of the game. Puts them ahead 21-16, and they never looked back. Another big game, Notre Dame, number 12, knocks off number 14, who I still think is a little overrated, the Michigan Wolverines. Notre Dame recovered a fumble in the last possession, able to seal the win, 24-17. The other big game for the NCAA, essentially, more so for the controversy surrounding everything, was Maryland knocking off Texas. I think Texas is overrated. They were ranked for this game, but I do believe that Maryland, playing for Jordan, got the win in this game. Unfortunately, my co-host here, Isaiah Addair, does have a class at 1 o'clock that he has to get to, but don't worry, I'm still here. Stick around with me, and I'll be here for another 15 minutes or so. So, moving on from Week 1 in the scoring review, I want to talk about a few Heisman hopefuls and who do I think will be a finalist. Not necessarily dependent on what happens today or what happened in Week 1, what happened in the first games. I want to say who will, I think, in the end of the season will be a Heisman hopeful. Will Grier definitely strengthened his case against Tennessee, throwing for 429 yards. I expected a 300-yard game. I didn't expect 429 yards and 5 touchdowns to go along with it as they derailed Tennessee 40-14. I think Will Grier is going to be up there. I definitely think that Bryce Love from the Stanford Cardinal gets it going, and I think that he is a guy that could potentially do what Saquon couldn't do, and at the very least be a Heisman finalist. I definitely think that that's all a possibility. And at the same time, some quarterbacks, I think there's some quarterbacks that I think could have great inflated stats. Drew Lock is one of them. Drew Lock for the Missouri Tigers is literally the entire offense, and Drew Lock could finish top 3 in passing yards at the end of the year, but his Tigers might win 6 games. So at the end of the day, my Heisman winner is probably at this point, going off of week 1 alone, is probably Will Grier. But it's a long season, so we'll have to see who can step up in the following weeks and make a name for themselves. So, predictions. These should be easy. Week 2, there aren't a ton of huge games. In my opinion, some upset alerts. New Mexico at number 4, Wisconsin. Give me Wisconsin. Wisconsin took out, I believe it was Western Kentucky, pretty handily week 1. Again, as I said, there's not many huge out of conference games this week. So give me Wisconsin in this game. Number 18, Mississippi State at Kansas State. I think this could be an interesting game. It could be closer than people think. Being at Kansas State, it could be an upset alert. But Mississippi State looked great. Their backup quarterback looked great. Their season opener, I don't recall who it was off the top of my head. And then they get Nick Fitzgerald back. Give me Mississippi State. 0-1, I know UCLA at number 7, Oklahoma. Oklahoma led by Kyler Murray, the guy who recently made headlines before the season of as soon as he finishes at Oklahoma, he's off to the MLB, starting his career with the Oakland Athletics. However, that being said, he's still got a year at Oklahoma, and I think he beats UCLA. UCLA had a few impact plays, specifically the running back taking it was like a 67, something like that, yard touchdown run to the house, in which he turned on the Jets, and there was no stopping him from there. I think Oklahoma gets it done. Kyler Murray has a field day, and especially being in Norman. William & Mary at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech looking like they're going in a decent direction right now. They have a big game tonight, actually, against Florida State. That'll be a good narrative, and they'll tell the tale of where exactly their season is expected to go. However, give me Virginia Tech in this game. Lane Stadium, William & Mary. It's never happened. William & Mary's never won. I will be seriously surprised. Arkansas State, Alabama. I don't expect anybody out of conference to be Alabama, so number 1, Alabama. Number 3, Georgia taking on South Carolina. This is such an interesting game for me in that South Carolina's offense with Jake Bentley and Deebo Samuel is so lethal for a program like South Carolina. But Georgia's Georgia, and I hate Will Muschamp. I don't like the way he runs a team, but right now South Carolina looks like they could be a dark horse sleeper in the SEC East. However, there's a reason Georgia went to the national championship last year. I'm going to stick with Georgia for this pick. Although, don't be surprised if it is a little bit of an upset alert. Rutgers going to Ohio State. Ohio State gets a win. I don't think that they miss Urban Meyer too much because they don't have a ton of teams they got to play that's real tough. Ohio State rolls. Ball State at number 12, Notre Dame. As I said, Notre Dame getting the huge win this past week over Michigan. They carry that momentum into this game. It's going to be a long day for Ball State. ETSU at Tennessee. Tennessee, again, taking a drumming by West Virginia, 40-14 in Charlotte at the Carolina Panthers Stadium. I definitely think that this is going to be a game that they need to rebound at. You got to win these games, obviously, if you want anywhere near bowl eligibility. I think they get it done against ETSU, ETSU being an FCS team. But don't get me wrong, both quarterbacks, Jarrett Garantano and Killer Christ, expected to play this game. Give me Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. Another rivalry game, Iowa State and Iowa. This is such an interesting game in that neither team is ranked Big 12 football. But I like Iowa State. I'm not going to lie. I like the way Iowa State plays. I was very impressed with them last year, exceeding expectations when I believe it was 8-4 was their final record. But with the home field advantage, they always seem to play better at home. Give me the Iowa Hawkeyes. Although it's a slim margin, and I think that could be a field goal game, but give me Iowa. Youngstown State versus number 17 West Virginia. West Virginia rolled Saturday, as I've said over and over and over. West Virginia looks like they could be a dark horse team for the college football playoff this year. Give me West Virginia in Morgantown. Clemson at A&M, Texas A&M. Clemson looks great, but Texas A&M, Kyle Field, it's always a toss-up at that arena. That being said, give me Clemson to take this game. Another interesting game, rivalry game. SEC East, Kentucky, Florida. I know Georgia's probably going to run the SEC East, but this could be interesting this could be an interesting picture for the rest of the division, to be completely honest. I mean, Kentucky and Florida. Florida looked fantastic against Charleston Southern, but as I said, it's Charleston Southern. Kentucky has the run game. Florida's got the new coach. It's going to be interesting. The only thing with it being in the swamp, that's the only thing. If it was it's a toss-up, but I'm giving home field. I'm giving the Florida Gators the nod there. Number 10, Penn State at Pittsburgh. Penn State coming off, as I said, the almost monumental upset against Appy State. Pittsburgh is good to me for an upset a year. So a couple years ago it was Clemson, or this last year it was Miami. Could it be Penn State this year, especially being in Pittsburgh? I don't know. And personally, I'm going to pick the Panthers in this game, the Pittsburgh Panthers. I'm not necessarily confident in that pick, but I feel like I need to pick an upset. And plus, I think that's doable. I think Pittsburgh always has a chance, playing in Heinz Field, has a chance to take out a top team. They've done it in the past, and I think Penn State is, unless they take this Appy State game and rally with it and it motivates them and they just go on a tear, give me the Panthers in this game. Michigan State at Arizona State. Michigan State looks pretty good, but it's at Arizona State. Arizona State's unranked. Michigan's number 11. This is a hard game. This is an interesting game for me, but I'm going to pick Michigan State. Look out for them in the Big Ten this year. And the game of the night, number 15, USC, and number 13, Stanford. I think that here's the thing that I have with ESPN and whoever makes rankings. Everybody wants USC and Texas to be good again, to relive those glory days of the BCS days. That being said, I don't think that USC or Texas are as good as they were last year. Give me Stanford in this game. Finally, moving on to Major League Baseball. Some huge moves made in this offseason. Manny Machado, earlier in the season, to the Dodgers. The Dodgers making a push. They're now on top of the NL West. Josh Donaldson, an injury kind of sideline, former AL MVP, now a member of the Cleveland Indians. They're trying to make a late season push for the playoffs. And lastly, Andrew McCutchen, polarizing player. Used to play for the Pirates, traded to the Giants at the beginning of the season. Now he's a New York Yankee. So Yankees making moves, making their already great lineup even better with a former MVP contender in Andrew McCutchen. So you have to be happy if you're a Yankees fan, except for the fact that the Boston Red Sox are also in your division. In the playoffs right now, several great races, several great potential matchups. Right now, you have the divisions-wise, you just talk about some fantastic potential matchups. So the way it works is out of the American League, the AL right now, in the American League East, you still have the Boston Red Sox, 94 wins. That's all I need to say right there. The Cleveland Indians at 77 and 59. The Houston Astros at the AL West. Look out for Oakland in that division, though. Oakland looks like they could potentially, they come out of nowhere. They look like they could potentially take that number one spot. But that being said, they are pretty entrenched right now in the wild card spot, the second wild card spot. The number one wild card spot being taken up by the New York Yankees. In the National League, out of the National League East, coming out a little ahead of schedule, the Atlanta Braves winning 76 games so far, 4 games ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies. The NL Central, still a fantastic division. They look like they have 3 teams that can win the World Series every single year, and that's no different this year. The Chicago Cubs on top with 81 wins, 81 and 55. The Milwaukee Brewers in second at 77 and 61. And the St. Louis Cardinals at 76 and 61. That means if the season ended today, the NL Central would field 3 playoff teams. Kind of insane when you think of how many teams that the MLB holds in their postseason. And as I said, in the NL West, really, really, really tight race. The Los Angeles Dodgers at 75 and 62. The Colorado Rockies at 74 and 62. Again, same amount of losses, but Los Angeles does have more wins. And Arizona Diamondbacks at 74 and 63. All within a game of each other. Really, and with the way the NL Central is looking right now, it could potentially be that only one of those 3 teams gets in, which is insane to me because they're all 3 so deserving and so great. And then out of the wild card spot, obviously, as I said, the Milwaukee Brewers at the first wildcard spot, and the St. Louis Cardinals out of the second wildcard spot if the season were to end today. Now, who do I expect to make the playoffs? Out of the American League, I definitely think obviously Boston. They've clinched it. The Yankees I think the wild card's probably going to be set unless an absolute late season push is made between the Yankees and the Athletics. Although the Athletics still could push to beat Houston for the AL West title. So I don't think it happens. I think Houston pulls away with the division lead, and I like the way Houston plays right now with Bregman, Altuve, Springer, all of them, Verlander. I think they're still great. Out of the AL Central, Cleveland's obviously going to roll with the division. They're a strong 14 games ahead. And then in the National League, this is an interesting game because you got to think there's 3 divisions. 2 divisions are only going to have 1 team. That being said, out of the NL East, give me Atlanta. And out of the NL West, as much as I want Colorado to pull it out, give me Los Angeles. Los Angeles has been on a tear here lately. They still have a star-studded lineup. Clayton Kershaw's still there. So give me the Dodgers. And then obviously the Cubs, Brewers, and Cardinals. I think they clinch all 3 wildcard spots. Or, excuse me, the Cubs win the division, and then the Brewers and Cardinals win the 2 wildcard spots. My dark horse team for the MLB playoffs honestly might be it's weird for me it's called them a dark horse team because they've been so overshadowed, but it's the Houston Astros. The Houston Astros still look pretty good, especially they're primed for postseason success, and I think it's an absolute possibility. So look out for Houston this year. Well, that's going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes, another edition of this show from Radio Free Radford this week. If you like what you heard, then be sure to like our Facebook page where we'll update all that goes on here on Hot Takes with Holmes. That is Hot Takes with Holmes on Facebook. We're also on YouTube where all of our broadcasts are going to be uploaded to throughout the semester. Find us at Hot Takes with Holmes on both, as I said, Facebook and YouTube. Again, if you liked what you heard, you like what you hear all the time here on Radio Free Radford, follow the social media accounts. Twitter at Radio Free Radford. Radio Free Raddy. Instagram is Radio Free Radford, and Facebook is, again, Radio Free Radford. Be sure to follow that, like, subscribe, follow all of our social media so you can know what shows are when and when you can check us out and some other fantastic shows here on the network. But for that being said, for my co-host Isaiah Addair, I'm Blake Holmes, and we look forward to another fantastic semester here on Radio Free Radford.